I'm glad there are at least a few U.S. Congress members that actually support human rights and freedoms. Uh, they boycotted Netanyahu's speech. This video is about 3 Illinois members who boycotted. Uh, this is not a war. It's a genocide. The Israeli government has been killing over 100,000 civilians. You cannot say you're in a war when you're killing innocent civilians.
Today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu played a controversial visit to Capitol Hill where he defended his war against Hamas and asked for U.S. support.
Ahead of his visit, protesters rallied outside, gathering hours before the Prime Minister's arrival.
If Biden was actually for international law, for human rights, he would have Netanyahu arrested for violating international law, violating people's human rights, and for genocide. But does he? No, he invites him to speak.
Israel does not seek to resettle Gaza, but for the foreseeable future, we must retain overriding security control there to prevent the resurgence of terror, to ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Okay, so how long will that last? Because the Israeli government gets to dictate how much of a threat Gaza poses to Israeli security. So that means they can be there as long as they want. And it's still, though, it's an illegal occupation what they're doing, no matter how they define it. You can't illegally be in another nation and think you have the right to control what goes on there. This is insane how he's trying to make it seem like this is all about security for the Israeli government. You can't kill over 100,000 civilians and act like it's security for your nation.
While many Republican lawmakers welcomed the Prime Minister's speech, other members of Congress chose to boycott. Let's go to our Andrew Ramos. He is live in the CBS News Chicago newsroom to break down the local reaction to this divisive appearance. Andrew.
Well, Maria, and some of those lawmakers who opted out of Benjamin Netanyahu's speech today instead met with the families of Israeli hostages, including Illinois Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. She is part of a growing list of local Democrats critical of the Prime Minister's leadership in Israel's Hamas war in Gaza. While protesters made their presence known outside the Capitol, rallying against the deaths of nearly 40,000 Palestinians since the war began, lawmakers held their own protest of sorts, pushing back at Netanyahu's address before it even happened. More than 50 senators and members of Congress were no-shows for the speech, among them Senator Dick Durbin and Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, both instead issuing fiery statements on the House floor ahead of his appearance.
And everybody else that stayed there in support of the Israeli government's genocide, they're nothing but right-wing fascists who don't care about the rights of people. All they want to do is see a bloodbath of Palestinians. You can't claim to be for human rights while at the same time supporting a genocide by a nation that is considered to be illegally occupying lands that don't belong to them. The Israeli government are the invaders. The Palestinians are the defenders.
For Israel's right to exist is not a blank check for extremist policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu.
We cannot work towards peace while giving a war criminal the floor.
Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky among the many House members who opted to meet with families of Israeli hostages, said they have growing resentment toward the Prime Minister and his inaction to end the conflict.
This is the same feelings that Israelis in Israel have about Netanyahu and their own government. Their government, because of the inaction of Bibi Netanyahu and what their government is doing. They know, though, that Netanyahu is just using the hostages as pawns to prolong the genocide as long as possible. When Netanyahu said he wasn't looking to colonize Gaza, That's a big lie, because that's what he and many of his cabinet members in Israel have been planning and talking about.
These are people that are very angry at Bibi Netanyahu for not making a priority of a ceasefire. He is not interested in ending the war.
It's a sentiment shared with Congressman Danny Davis, who did attend Netanyahu's joint session speech out of respect and tradition, but maintains that he disagrees with every policy the prime minister has.
Ooh, you can't give respect to a war criminal. This would be like letting Hitler or Putin come to the United States, talk, and then listening to him talk because you respect the tradition. No. But, I mean, I can kind of understand. As long as you're still openly against what they're doing, that's good.
Has put on the table thus far.
Especially his treatment of Palestinians who are in need.
Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is expected to meet with President Biden and Vice President Harris on Wednesday. Then we'll meet with former President Trump at Mar-a-Lago on Friday.